In the last stream, we were working on setting up the new multi-block from Tinker's construct, the Foundry, to allow us to more easily process all of our raw ores from our quarry in the mining dimension into their ingot and block form. And the reason the Foundry is the multi-block to do that is that unlike the smeltery, the Foundry cannot create alloys, which means that we can pump every single metal that we get into the Foundry. No alloys will be created, and then we can just pull them out one by one once we have enough of that molten metal to make a block's worth of that ingot. Now, for the most part, things have been running pretty smoothly here. Between streams, I have gone ahead and added a few more compacting drawers here for things like aluminum, silver, uranium, and osmium. I've also gone ahead and compacted down the regular Minecraft double chests that we had over here, and I've replaced those with a few more gold chests, and I've moved over the obsidian chest that previously we had on our builder, because in the last stream we replaced that obsidian chest with the ender chest. So now all of our stuff is coming back automatically. The only problem that we're currently running into is that the raw zinc, for whatever reason, isn't being pulled in. I think it has something to do, or I'm almost certain I should say, that it has something to do with the filter that we have here. We're currently filtering for all forged raw materials, which I would assume includes zinc, but I have pressed F3H to enable advanced tooltips, and it looks like, again, for whatever reason, the zinc here has forged raw ores zinc and forged raw materials zinc, but it's still not moving over. I think it should be a fairly easy fix. All we should have to do here is go back to the tag filter, drop in the raw zinc, and then just manually select zinc as a tag that we're going to add. So now it's going to move all forged raw materials, and also separately, it's going to move zinc. That's going to allow it to go in as well. So it should get melted down, should get moved through, everything should be fine, and we have exactly one more framed drawer here ready to take that zinc when it is smelted, which is actually going to become quite useful later on in today's stream, because we are going to start working our way through the Magic Hair questline here, specifically the top part of the questline, because we want to get to this 3 Andesite alloy quest. Once we've completed this quest, that's going to unlock the Tech V1 questline, which is going to unlock the Create mod. And the reason I say the zinc is useful here is that in order to make Andesite alloy, once we get past the blood magic part, we can make this in a mixer using Andesite and iron nuggets. Alternatively, we can use Andesite and zinc nuggets. And I think this is definitely going to be the recipe that we want to use, because we have a lot more uses for iron and not that many uses for zinc. So using the zinc to make the andesite alloy is definitely going to be, I think, the economical thing for us to do. But we're getting a little bit ahead of ourselves. To get started here, we are going to have to make this guy right here, the mixing cauldron. And thankfully, this is pretty easy to make. 5 iron ingots, 1 cauldron, and 1 torch. Again, thankfully, the smeltery has been running a little bit here between streams, and so we should have enough iron to make a cauldron, and then following that, we should also have enough iron to just go ahead and make the mixing cauldron. The only thing we're missing is the 2 regular Minecraft torches, and boom. Nice! So this has a pretty interesting interface here, but all we need to do now is we need to make a blood sigil, and we need to make a sacrificial knife. The blood sigil is fairly easy to make, and this is kind of going to give us an idea of how the cauldron works. We need 4 blackstone of the polished variety, 4 redstone, and then I believe we need 333 millibuckets of lava inside of the mixing cauldron. All of those together should produce the blood sigil. Now, currently, we do not have any blackstone in our system. However, I think we should be able to get the blackstone fairly easily from the nether. Real quick, let's grab this block of zinc here. Of course, right now, it doesn't have anywhere to go. We do need to manually go ahead and drop the zinc in here because the drawer is locked. Let's go quickly see if we can't find some blackstone. We should have, I think, more than enough redstone. We've got 16 redstone. Right now, I think our quarry is almost at the Y level. It's at -40, so it's kind of getting down to around that area where it might start to find things like redstone. So I'm hoping that fairly soon we should start to see more things like redstone, diamonds, lapis, etc. coming into our system. Last episode, we did put this bonsai pot down, and much to my surprise, it has actually been able to keep up. So the bonsai pot is producing more fuel than the invar generator needs, and so between streams, this has been chugging away and is slowly but surely working its way through all of the chunks. So over in the nether, though, I'm pretty sure that just over here, we have a biome that might have quite a lot of blackstone just on the ground. I think it's just past this little hole in the wall here. So that should be the blackstone basically taken care of. Yeah, I think over there, if I'm not mistaken, we can make it over this this somewhat dangerous jump here. Beautiful. There should be a large biome that is full of blackstone. There is indeed. Look at that. Fantastic. So real quick, let's just go ahead and auto-mine a large amount of that. That was probably more dangerous than it needed to be. We could have fallen straight into lava there, but nevertheless, we do now have a bunch of blackstone. Sometimes this does happen where we come back and the drawers are not colored the way they should be. If you just press F3A, that will reload the chunks and we'll get the textures looking how they should once again. Once we have the blackstone, we can grab that for redstone. Let's also go ahead and grab our tank full of lava over here. And if we make sure that that is in bucket mode, it is, we can then right-click onto the mixing cauldron as if the tank were a bucket. That's going to deposit 1 bucket's worth of lava into the cauldron. And then from there, we can do something like this to craft that up into polished blackstone. And then we can do 1, 2, 3, 4 blackstone and 1, 2, 3, 4 redstone. And I think that's almost everything we need to actually make this happen. It totally is. Nice. And we have a blood sigil. Next up, we need the sacrificial knife. This is made in much the same way, but this time we need 2 buckets worth of lava, which again, we should be able to do. We've got 6 buckets in here, 1 and 2. And then on top of that, we also need 3 scandium ingots, 4 chromium ingots, and 1 titanium ingots. The scandium ingot we can get from scandium, which is its own element, and the scandium we can get from yellow simulation blocks, which we can make with sulfur, which we do have, and as luck would have it, chromium is also acquired via the yellow simulation block, so we should be able to get both scandium and chromium via the use of that yellow simulation block, and then finally the titanium ingot. Excuse me? Hello? We are recording this very close to Halloween. It's currently the 29th of October, so we do have some spooky shenanigans. I don't think that these guys are hostile. I also don't think that we can really do anything with them other than just potentially be spooked. But either way, the titanium here is acquirable through titanium oxide, which we can get from smooth basalt and blackstone, which I think is going to be the way we go about getting this. So blackstone does only have a 2% chance of getting titanium oxide, but as we just saw, we do have a large amount of blackstone available to us, and so we should be able to get more than enough titanium oxide to get us 16 titanium element, and once we have 16 titanium element, we can get the titanium dust, smelt that into titanium ingots, and we should be good to go. So real quick, let us grab the sulfur. We have 19, and the good news is that we get more sulfur as we go here. So every single time that we break down some of these yellow simulation block, we actually get more sulfur back as a result. And so we should really be able to make an infinite amount of yellow simulation block. The only limiting factor is going to be how much white simulation block we have. But again, we're in an infinite world of white simulation blocks. And so real quick, I'm going to go ahead and just grab a bunch of simulation block, craft it into yellow simulation block, and break it down and rinse and repeat. And there we go. Not too long later, we've got over a stack of scandium and just over a stack of chromium. And so real quick, if we head on over to our compactor, we should be able to turn the chromium into chromium dust and the scandium into scandium dust. And then, of course, we can drop all that into the diamond furnace here. Let's quickly craft down those logs into planks. And then after that, the only thing we're missing then is that titanium. The pack creator has pointed out that although blackstone only has a 2% chance of creating titanium oxide, if you craft the blackstone into polished blackstone, you actually significantly increase the chance up to 30% to get titanium oxide. So it's definitely worth crafting that blackstone into polished blackstone and then using it to try and get the titanium oxide. So we might actually be able to just take the blackstone we already have, run that through the dissolver here, and we need 16 titanium oxide, which we got. Nice. We can then go ahead and break that down even further, like so. That's going to get us more than 16 titanium, and then we can take that, and actually we got 2 titanium per titanium oxide, so we really only needed 8 titanium oxide in total there. We can then craft that up into titanium dust. Fantastic. And of course, over into a titanium ingot. And I think, chat, that should be basically everything that we need here. Now, I am being told you can also just drop things into the cauldron here. So if we do something like this, 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, I think, oh, look at that. That is very cool. Nice. And we have a sacrificial knife. Now, chat is shouting at me to claim my rewards. So real quick, let me dump some of the stuff we have in our inventory here that we don't need to be carrying around with us just at the moment. And then let's go ahead and claim our rewards and see what we get. So we have managed to acquire a titanium ingot, a chromium ingot, gold, iron, a filtered link cable, bottle of blood, steak, cryptocurrency, and a diamond. Nice. So next up, this is where it's all coming together here. We need the blood altar. The blood altar is made using a gallium ingot with a manganese ingot and then some regular old stone. I think just normal stone here is going to do the trick, along with the blood sigil we've made and a regular Minecraft furnace. So I don't know if we have gallium or manganese. We do have a little bit of manganese. Where have we been getting our manganese from? So manganese we can get from diorite, granite, and I assume also potentially andesite as well. That should be fine because we can make things like granite from silicon dioxide, so we can just turn cobblestone into silicon dioxide into granite, and then we can break the granite down, and we have a chance of getting that manganese there. Then in terms of the gallium we can get just from regular stone, by the looks of it. We can also get it from magenta simulation block. So it looks like what we probably want to do here is just break down some stone and cobblestone until we get our first gallium, and then once we have our first gallium, much like we've done before with some of the other elements, we can use the white simulation block to get even more of it by just crafting it up and breaking it down and repeating that process over and over and over again. So with regular cobblestone, the gallium's only a 0.4% chance, which is incredibly low. With the stone, it creeps up to 1.61%, which is still very low, but it's definitely higher than cobblestone. So it might be worth here smelting up quite a bit of stone and then using that to see if we can't get some gallium. Again, in this scenario, we only need one gallium. As soon as we have the one, we can use that to get infinite gallium. But given that it's a 1% chance, or like a 1.5% chance, that means we potentially might have to run through about 70 stone to make that happen. And there we go. We have our first gallium. I am being told that this is a slow way of doing it. I'm being told that you can smelt compressed cobblestone to get compressed stone. So it actually looks like you can take, for example, a double compressed cobblestone, drop that in there. That smelts incredibly quickly, and then you've got double compressed stone. That is actually substantially faster than what I was trying to do. That is good to know. Anyway, now that we have our first gallium, we can, of course, do the same method we've been doing before via the white simulation block to duplicate the amount of gallium that we have. And there we go, there's 29. Let's do the same here. We'll go and make a gallium dust. We'll smelt that gallium dust over here, and that should be everything that we need in order to make ourselves the blood altar. Nice. So now we need to get this lifeless andesite mixture, because in order to make the andesite alloy, the normal recipe, as I showed earlier, is this one right here. It requires an andesite, 2 iron nuggets or 2 zinc nuggets inside of a mechanical mixer with a basin above it and then a blaze burner beneath it. Now, right now, we can't make any of this stuff because we actually need to have the andesite alloy to make the stuff required here. For example, if we wanted to make a mixer, the mechanical mixer requires an andesite casing. The andesite casing requires andesite alloy. The cogwheels also require shaft, which are just made from andesite alloy. So we need to be able to make the andesite alloy before we can get to the more efficient way of making the andesite alloy. That is where the blood altar comes in. Here, we can put down a tier 1 blood altar, which is just this guy right here. You can upgrade this to higher tiers in the future, but for now, we just need the regular tier 1 altar. And then with that, what we need to do is we need to place a lifeless andesite mixture into the altar and make sure that the altar has 1,240 life points inside of it, and that will then transfer the life points into the lifeless mixture, and it will no longer be lifeless, it will be just a regular old andesite alloy. So the lifeless andesite alloy, thankfully, is fairly easy to make. It's 2 andesite and 2 iron nuggets. Unfortunately, no option for zinc here. That is fine. We do have iron nuggets available to us. Again, thankfully, due to the fact that we have a compacting drawdown, we don't have to craft the iron ingots down into iron nuggets manually. Instead, we can just go ahead and make ourselves some lifeless andesite mixture, assuming we have andesite, which we don't, but I'm fairly certain that the andesite is another one of those recipes that is just silicon dioxide. It totally is. Boom. And boom, there's a stack of andesite blocks. Let's do this and get our first lifeless andesite mixture. And so for those unaware, the way that this works, over here, we currently have a blood altar that is empty. If we right click with the sacrificial knife next to the blood altar, that's going to deal 1 heart of damage to us, and it's going to put some life essence into the blood altar. You'll see in the top left there, the amount is going down. The reason it's going down is that the blood altar has an internal buffer that needs to be filled first. And so I think it might be a 1000 millibucket buffer. So it's going to look like nothing's happening for a little while here, but once that internal buffer has been filled, then you'll just start backing up inside of the blood altar. The blood doesn't like disappear over time. It doesn't go away. You don't have to be fast or anything like that. There's just an internal buffer. I do wish they made it more obvious that that's what's happening here. But either way, for now, we can just go ahead and take ourselves down to half a heart and then eat to regenerate some of that health. And we should see that soon the number stops going down. Yeah, look at that. So now we have 1 bucket in there, and that 1 bucket isn't going anywhere. And now whenever we right-click with the dagger, I believe we get an additional 200 millibuckets. So this should go up to 1.2. It totally does. And then 1.4, and then 1.6. You get the idea. So now what we can do, now that we've filled up that internal buffer, is we can take our lifeless andesite mixture, and because we have more than 1,240, a very specific number there, but because we have more than 1.2 buckets worth of LP in our altar, when we place this in, that is going to slowly but surely drain the 1,240 LP that it requires, and once it has drained that, it should transform into our first andesite alloy. Nice. Now, the quest does want us to make 3 of these, so real quick, let's go ahead and do something like this. Not that. Let's do this and this, and then we'll take 2 more of those, and then let's just make sure that we have about 2.5 buckets worth of life essence in the system here. So once again, I'm being told here that this is where our blood cake comes into effect. Right at the start of the pack, we were given this blood cake here. If we eat this, we actually get regeneration, which is going to make it a lot easier for us to fill up the blood altar here, which is very nice indeed. And once we have over 2.5 buckets worth, we can do the same again and turn both of these lifeless andesite mixtures into regular old andesite alloy. And there we go. We have 3 andesite alloy that completes the blood infused quest here. As a reward, we're going to get 1 to 8 andesite alloy. If we're lucky, we're going to get 8. We actually did get 8. That is fantastic. You love to see it. That takes us up to 11 andesite alloy in total. That's what they call streamer luck right there. And then that in turn is going to allow us, I believe, to start working on this quest line right here. To unlock that, we do need to go back to progression, and we need to take this box right here, and boom. And so now we have access to the beginning of the create mod. So now I think the first thing that we're going to want to do here is unlock a method that allows us to make the andesite alloy the easy way, right? Because ideally, we don't want to have to give up life points every single time we want to make andesite alloy. I think ideally, we want to be able to use this recipe, which is going to be easier for us in the long run. So to do that, we need some shaft, we need some andesite casing, and we need to get to that mechanical mixer. So the andesite casing is thankfully pretty easy to make. You can right-click an andesite alloy onto a wooden machine frame. Usually, you could use a deployer for this. However, there is the option up here for the manual item application. So I think all we have to do is get a new wooden machine frame, which should be, again, very easy for us to do. The wooden plates are just made from pressure plates. The pressure plates are, of course, just made from planks. I'll make a bunch of these oak pressure plates here because I have a feeling we might need a few more of these wood machine frames going forward. For now, though, there's a wooden gear, and there is our box just as soon as we craft up some more planks. And boom, that gets us our wooden machine frame. We can drop that down on the ground, and if we right-click one of our andesite alloy onto that machine frame, boom, it transforms into an andesite casing, which we can pick up, and that should complete that quest. Again, as a reward here, we get 2 to 4 andesite casing. If streamer luck is working, I should get 4 here. I only got 3. It's not quite, it's wearing off slowly but surely. But next up, the mechanical mixer. This requires a cogwheel, an andesite casing, and a whisk. So the whisk is 4 iron plates and 2 andesite alloy. Now, I don't know if I can make the iron plates without... I guess I could make it with the Smeltery using a plate cast, but I think the easier method here is going to be for us to first make the mechanical press, completing the bonking time quest. This is going to allow us to make plates using create. So let me go ahead and bookmark the mixer. We'll also go ahead and bookmark the press as well. Now, to make these, we do need cogwheels, which need shafts. The shafts need andesite alloy, which we have. You'll love to see it. The cogwheel is easy enough to make once you have the andesite alloy. And then the mechanical press just requires a block of iron. Boom, and boom. Nice. Now, the way the create works, for those who don't know, is that these machines all require mechanical energy to actually move the block and allow it to do its thing. So you have to create rotational force that is then going to rotate this shaft here and cause the mechanical press to plunk down and, in the words of the quest, boink the metal that you put beneath it. Now, there are quite a few ways that you can generate this mechanical or this rotational energy in Create, but to start with, I think the easiest thing for us to do here might be just to create a hand crank. The hand crank is just 3 planks and 1 andesite alloy, and with this, what we can do is we can slap it down onto any item, like the mechanical press, and then if we just right-click, that's going to allow it to move. So in this case, we want to get, let me just quickly check, 5 iron plates. So if we take 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 iron plates, and we drop those down underneath the mechanical press, like so, we can then go ahead and rotate this, and boom. We do have to do that 5 times, because it can only do 1 iron at a time, but one by one here, this is converting those iron ingots into iron plates. Now, again, going forward, once we have a better source of the rotational energy here, we are going to be able to do that a lot faster than it's currently being done by hand, but by hand is definitely the quickest way of us getting this up and running, and that should be basically everything that we need to make the whisk, and therefore everything we need to make the mechanical mixer. So the only things we're missing now, in order to allow us to make the andesite alloy more easily, are a basin, which should be fairly doable. It's 5 andesite alloy. That's exactly the amount that we have, which is incredibly lucky. We'll take that, and for now, we'll drop that, let's say, here, with the whisk on top, like so. Again, a similar idea here, by the way. The mechanical whisk doesn't have a shaft connector, like the mechanical press does, and so what you have to do here is we need to use one of the cogwheels that we crafted earlier. You can then put the cogwheel down like this. You'll see it kind of visualizes where it's going to go. And once the cogwheel is down, you can then put a hand crank onto the cogwheel. And then if you do that, that will then allow the whisk to start spinning. And if there is something in the basin, the whisk will descend down and spin inside the basin. But we're not quite done. The final piece of the puzzle here is this little heated section at the bottom. So there are some recipes. You'll see there are 606 recipes. I do believe there are some recipes in here that don't require the mixer to be heated. Or at least normally that's the case. It looks like in this pack it might be all of the recipes need to be heated. Oh no, there we go. So like this recipe here to make a wooden machine frame doesn't require any heating. And so sometimes you can use the mixer without anything beneath it. And in fact, this is actually a more efficient way of making those wooden machine frames because it only requires 2 wooden plates and 2 planks as opposed to 4 wooden plates and 4 planks. So it would be beneficial for us to use this recipe in the future, especially if wood was something that we were running low on. But for now, and people are telling me I get based as a quest reward, I should be claiming these. I totally do. Also, the depot here is actually just an easier way of placing items down for things like the mechanical press here. So, for example, if I did something like this and like this, the depot is a little easier in that you don't have to try and drop things directly underneath the mechanical press. You can just right-click the things onto the basin, and they will sit there, and then you can right-click them off, which is much easier to do than what I was trying to do. We do have an extra basin now that is completely fine. We'll use that in the future, I am sure. But in this case, the recipe that we are trying to make does in fact require heating. And the way that you heat it is via this guy right here, the blaze burner. So the empty blaze burner is 4 iron plates and 1 netherrack. And again, almost as if it was planned, we do have exactly 4 iron ingots ready to go. So let's do something like this. And boom, there we go. There are 4 iron sheets. And then we just need 1 netherrack, which we do have. Boom, and boom. Now, you can, with Create, usually press W to ponder, or hold W to ponder. You'll see underneath where it says empty blaze burner, we can press W, and it comes up with this really cool demonstration of how to use the block or item or machine that it is that you're currently trying to ponder. And the way that you would normally go about getting this to be actually heated, like right now it's an empty blaze burner, the way you would normally go about filling it is you would go to the nether, you would find a blaze, and then you would right-click the blaze burner onto the blaze, and that would then trap the blaze inside of the blaze burner, and then you could use it underneath your basin. However, in this pack, we can actually just craft the blaze burner with 16 blaze powder inside of the combiner, and that will get us a fully functioning blaze burner without having to go and find ourselves a blaze. And as luck would have it, the blaze powder here is fairly easy to make. It is 8 carbon, 8 germanium, and 8 sulfur. Again, carbon we have, and we can get from all kinds of stuff, including, I believe, the black simulation block, if we really wanted to, the sulfur, which we can get from yellow simulation block, and the germanium, which we can get from light blue simulation block. That does require niobium, which I think we actually can't get just yet. Yeah, no, the niobium requires things like prismarine that we currently don't have access to. So I think that we're actually just going to have to use the nether brick recipe for the germanium, so we can just smelt our netherrack into nether brick and then use that to create some germanium here. So it seems like just smelting this into brick is the best way of doing this. It's not worth crafting it up further into blocks. So our pickaxe has broken here, and we did choose to make our pickaxe out of cobalt. So we are going to have to get a cobalt repair kit to actually repair this. Thankfully, that should not be too difficult. Now, currently, we don't have a cobalt repair kit. Also, we are a little low on food here. That is fine. Let me drop this into here. We'll drop both those ingots. Actually, let's just drop the raw cobalt in. That seems like it makes more sense. And I'm also going to drop in 1 gold ingot, because if we're going to make cobalt repair kits, we are going to have to first get ourselves a repair kit gold cast, which thankfully, much like all of our previous casts, should be fairly easy to make. We can just make a regular old repair kit. I don't actually know if you can use wood, if you can use wooden parts to make casts. I don't think you can. I think you have to use at least cobblestone parts, because I think the wooden parts would just melt, but don't quote me on that. Either way, over here, we should be able to drop down the cobblestone repair kit, pull the gold over it to create the cast, and then once we have the cast, we can then pull the cobalt into that cast, and that's going to give us the repair kit that we can then use to craft with our pickaxe to repair it. Nice. So after a quick flick through JI, because the nether brick doesn't really give you that much germanium, and we need 2 stacks of carbon, sulfur, and germanium. We have the carbon, we have the sulfur, but with only a 5% chance to get germanium from every nether brick, it was going to take quite a lot of nether brick to get 2 stacks of germanium. Thankfully, though, looking through here, the nether wart block has a 100% chance to get you 36 germanium, and previously we had to come through over to this area of the nether anyway, so I remember having these nether wart blocks here, and thankfully, that should be a very large amount of germanium for us. So if we just run that through our dissolver here, that should, in theory, get us a staggering amount, maybe more germanium than we can actually handle. Again, we only need 2 stacks of the stuff, which we now have. Fantastic. I'm going to take the rest of that nether wart block out, because otherwise our system is just going to be clogged with selenium and germanium and some chitin. But either way, let's go ahead and take all 3 of those, and then over in, I think it's the combiner. It is indeed. Let's do this, and let's get ourselves 16 blaze powder. Nice. We can then take that blaze powder again in the combiner and get ourselves a blaze burner. Nice. So now we can take this over here, and again, if we hit W to ponder, blaze burners can provide heat to items processed in a basin. You do have to right-click fuel onto the blaze burner in order for it to work, because it has to be fed with flammable items. So by default, it's not going to do anything when placed underneath. It does need to have some kind of fuel. So right now it's doing nothing, and just to test it, if we grabbed some andesite and some zinc this time, because we don't want to be wasting our iron nuggets, we could put in 2 andesite, 1 and 2, with 2 zinc nuggets, 1 and 2, and even if we go ahead and spin the crank here, that is still not going to work. However, if we take some oak planks and right-click those on here, that's going to start this guy burning. And so now if we right-click the crank, the whisk is going to descend, or the mixer is going to descend. It's going to do its thing, and boom, we have an andesite alloy. Nice. And you can take this further, of course, if we go ahead and grab a stack of zinc nuggets, or let's do, I guess, 56 zinc nuggets, because that's how much andesite we have. And we can drop in all 56 of the andesite, all 56 of the zinc, and then if we give this guy a few more oak planks here to keep him going, we can then just right-click this, and we can just hold down right-click, and that's going to slowly but surely work its way through all of the andesite alloys. And again, of course, going forward, the plan is to automate this with an automated system of producing the kinetic energy so that we don't have to stand and manually crank the crank ourselves, and in theory we could even go further and automate this with some of the more advanced automation methods from Create. We can start using things like funnels and belts and even things like arms. We've got mechanical arms that we can use to place different items in different places. There's a ton of stuff that you can do with Create to automate all kinds of stuff going forward. For now, though, if we were to right-click this, you'll see that we've got 42 of each back, and we also got more andesite alloy. Nice. So now we have unlocked the easier way of making that andesite alloy. And if I'm not mistaken, the next stage forward, actually, the way that we unlock Tech V2 is via this quest down here. We need a steel ingot. So the steel down here, I believe we have to make using the blast furnace from Immersive Engineering. So this is a fairly slow multi-block, but it is going to allow us to start turning iron into steel. Now, in order to make the blast furnace, we need blast brick, and the blast brick is made in the mechanical basin with the blaze heater and the mixer that we currently have. So we need 27 blast brick in order for this to work. So we need 9 magma blocks, 9 coal coke, and 9 buckets worth of molten clay. The molten clay here we can make in our smeltery, and then we can just either use a bucket or a fluid pipe to pump that over into the mechanical basin. Magma blocks we have from the nether, and then the coal coke we're going to have to go via the coke oven, which requires coke brick, this stuff right here, and this one is made using the spout from Create. Interesting. Okay, so this is a similar idea here. We do need molten clay, and we need regular old bricks, and then we can use the spout, which I will bookmark. The spout here is made with copper casing and with dried kelp. The copper casing is again made in the mixer. This is an andesite alloy with a copper plate. We've made the andesite casing before, and the copper sheet is exactly the same as the iron sheet, but copper on the mechanical press. And then in terms of the dried kelp, this is made by smelting regular kelp, and the regular kelp, it looks like we can make with chemistry using water and cellulose. So I'm pretty sure we have both water and cellulose ready to go. We totally do. And so if we quickly eat here, we can then head on over to our combiner, and if we type in kelp, boom, and boom, that's going to get us 16 kelp. Of course, if we wanted to, we could grow more kelp in the future. For now, we just need the 1 kelp, or the 1 dried kelp, which is done. And then let's see, do we have what it takes to make another wooden machine frame? We should, I think, have what it takes. 1, 2, 3, 4 plates, along with a wooden gear. Again, we could make this in the mixer, but I think the time it would take to mix things in the mixer is, I think we have enough wood to where it's not worth spending the time mixing it in the mixer and going through all of that effort when we have like an infinite amount of wood coming from our bonsai pot. So let's go ahead and drop this down on the ground. We're then going to right-click an andesite alloy like so. That's going to get us another andesite casing. You'll love to see it. That should then allow us to make our copper casing just as soon as we get 1 copper ingot. Let's drop that in here. While we're at it, let's go ahead and make another crank here, just so we don't have to keep moving that first one around back and forth. Boom. We can then drop in the copper sheet along with 1 andesite casing. Our burner is not burning, so let's give it a piece of wood, and let's do this. And there we go. We have a copper casing. Nice. That should be everything for the spout. It totally is. And if we go ahead and ponder here, we can see that we can place the spout above the a depot. And then I believe we do have to, yeah, we have to, so you'll see that it did say that, you might have missed it, that you can't manually place buckets worth of liquid into the spout. You have to pump into the spout. Thankfully, there are a few ways you can do this. You can do it with Create, like this, using a mechanical pump and a tank, and then some cogwheels to make that work. Alternatively, I think any of the pipes in the game, so regular pipes from pipes, or even I think the lasers here, the laser nodes from Laser.io with fluid cards would work. But also, I'm being told by the Twitch chat that we can do it with, like, directly from the seared faucet. So I think in theory here, if we were to break this and this, what we might be able to do, and we are going to need the depot here, but if we take this, I think what I'm being told by the Twitch chat is that we can place down the spout like that, and then we can place down the depot here. I know this looks janky as heck, but if we do that, what we should then be able to do is place the clay into the smeltery, creating the molten clay. And then once we have the 1000 millibuckets of molten clay, we can then use the faucet here to pull that down into the spout. And then we can use the spout to then pull that down into the depot. And that is going to create for us 3 coke brick. Okay, so it turns out I am a fool And there is actually a very simple recipe for making steel here. It's unfortunate because we've gone out of our way here to make the spout, and I was very interested in seeing the jankiness of this play out. In fact, I'm probably going to go ahead and make at least 1 bucket worth of clay just so we can see if this does actually work. But it turns out there's a much easier way of making steel in this pack, and that is using the mixer that we already have. You can just put in 4 coal and 1 iron into the mixer that is heated, and that will create 1 steel ingot. And then once we have steel, we can then unlock the steel casing. And as soon as we get into Mekanism gives us a really easy way of automating the production of steel in the future. So there really isn't too much point in us going through the method of making the coke oven and then making the blast furnace. The blast furnace is automatable, or more easily automatable, I should say, than the mixer. But again, once we have Mekanism, that's going to null and void that anyway, so it's not really worth us going through and creating the blast furnace, unfortunately. So 1 ball of clay here gets us 250 millibuckets of molten clay. So if we put 4 clay into the smeltery, we should then be able, and also we do need some brick here as well, which thankfully we do have. Let's do this, and then in here, let's pull that to the bottom. Let's place this brick down here, and then let's do this to fill that up. I love that that works. That's fantastic. And then once that is full, that's going to automatically disperse its load, and boom, look at that. We have 3 coke bricks. You love to see it. Beautiful. So that is cool. I like the jankiness of how that actually works, but as I have mentioned, it is entirely useless because we do not need that whatsoever. Instead, we can just replace down our casting table. We can put back in the repair kit, and we can fill in the hole that we made. And now we can head on back over to our mixer. And if we were to go ahead and grab just 4 coal and 1 iron, we can then do 1 and 1, 2, 3, 4. And if we give this guy some fuel, we can crank. And there we go. We have a steel ingot. Nice. Let's go ahead and claim our rewards here. We do get some more stuff. And I guess in that case then, the only thing we need to do now in order to get ourselves into the Tech 2 quest line is create a steel casing, which we can do by right-clicking a steel plate onto a brass casing. Now, it looks like this might have to be done with a deployer. The previous recipe here, the one with the wooden frame, could be done with manual item application, but it looks like this one does actually require the deployer from Create. To do that, we are going to need 1 brass casing, and oh, it looks like we actually do need the spout. Okay, cool. So, never mind. This was all part of the plan. In order to make brass casing, we need copper casing infused with 180 millibuckets of molten brass. And so I think we're actually going to have to reintroduce this incredibly janky creation, because this time we can drop this down like so. We can place our spout down back where it was, and now we can use the smeltery to create molten brass, because molten brass is an alloy between zinc and copper. So let's grab a zinc, let's grab a copper. If we drop both of those into here, they should melt down and form into molten brass. Once that's done, that's going to get pulled out into the spout. And then once that's done, we just need a copper casing, which I believe we did just get as a quest reward. We totally did. Let's drop that down like so. The brass is done. Let's move it to the bottom. Let's pull it into the spout. And then that's going to eject it down and make brass casing. Nice. So the final piece of the puzzle here is creating the steel casing. So to create the steel casing, we need to actually use a deployer. Now, I think that the deployer should be fairly easy for us to make. It does require a brass handle, so we are going to need 4 brass ingots, as well as an andesite alloy. It needs another andesite casing, which is very doable for us. We should be able, I'm pretty sure, to make 4 more of these wooden plates just as soon as we get some more wooden planks. Let's do this and this. 2, 3, 4. Then we can make another wooden gear, and we can make another wooden frame, which of course we can right click with our andesite alloy. And then what else are we missing? We need to bookmark this. We need another andesite alloy there, and then the electron tube here requires an iron sheet, and it requires polished rose quartz. So the polished rose quartz is made using sandpaper on rose quartz. And rose quartz you can make by putting regular quartz either into a blood altar, but it looks like the easier method is going to be into a mixer with 8 redstone. So we have got a very small amount of redstone, but we have enough, and we do also have some nether quartz. So if we drop both of those into our mixer over here, boom and boom, we don't have to provide that with any fuel because it doesn't need to be heated. All we have to do is crank away. That's going to get us rose quartz. Then we need some sandpaper, which I believe we craft together using, you guessed it, sand and paper. Thankfully, we do have some sugarcane that we can craft down, and boom. And then, if I'm not mistaken, the way this works is we have to place the sandpaper in our offhand, select the rose quartz, and then right-click. That's going to use the sandpaper, which has a durability of 8, to create the polished rose quartz, and then from there, we can take that polished rose quartz and combine it with 1 iron plate, which, as always, we can get using our mechanical press, which is a little too high. Let me make another depot real quick. And boom. Making the depot did use up our andesite casing, so let's quickly do one of those again. Fantastic. And I think, chat, that should be almost everything that we need for the deployer. So that gets us the electron tube, the brass hand. Oh, of course, does require some brass. We have the andesite casing. So in this scenario, all we need to do really now is get enough brass into here and then pull that out in ingot form. So the recipe for brass was 1 ingot of copper and 1 ingot of zinc. That gets you 2 ingots worth of brass. So we need 2 copper and 2 zinc is what we need here. That's going to get us 4 brass. And there we go. There is our 4th brass ingot. Fantastic. Let's drop those over onto the old depot here. And that should be everything we need, chat. So let's see if we can't make the brass hand. We can. And then that should be everything for the deployer. It is. And so now we need to do a similar thing here. We're going to put the deployer down. Now, I think this might go the wrong way around. It did. It might be easier here. By the way, you can use the wrench to just shift right click and break things. It is easier than doing it however I was doing it before. Yeah, you want to right click the deployer onto the top of the depot to get it facing the correct way. And then from there, you guessed it, we're going to once again move the crank. Again, the crank is also more easily broken with the wrench. You shift right click and it puts it in your inventory, and boom. So now, all we need to do here, chat, is we need to give the hand a steel plate. So for that, we're going to have to move this back because I don't actually have a steel plate. So let's do this, and temporarily, we'll just do this for now. Let's take our steel ingot, and we're going to drop that down underneath the mechanical press. That's going to create our first steel plate. We can then take that steel plate, and if we once again move over the hand here, I don't know how we took damage there, but we did. Oh, it's because we have no food. We can then do one of these, and we want to make sure that we right-click the steel plate onto the bottom of the deployer, like that. That's going to put the steel plate into the hand. Then we can take our brass casing, put that onto the depot, like that. And then now, if we crank, that's going to deploy the steel plate onto the brass casing and get us a steel casing. Nice. And now, going forward, what we can do here is we can use our first steel casing to make a metallurgic infuser, along with 2 osmium, 4 iron, and 2 redstone, which is actually incredibly easy to do. Like so. And if we put this down somewhere that has power, like so, again, we are going to need to upgrade our power source in the very, very near future. But once this has power, we can now make these steel casings much more easily, because now all we have to do is place a block of steel and some redstone into the metallurgic infuser, and we will get a steel casing. And in terms of actually making steel, that's also going to be easier, because now if we want to make steel ingots, we can smelt up steel dust, and steel dust we can get using the metallurgic infuser. So unlocking Mekanism is going to get us one step closer towards space, and also towards the end of the pack here. We have kind of blitzed through Create a little bit. I think we will try going forward to integrate a couple of the Create contraptions here into our base design and into the automation of the base. Let's quickly claim some of our rewards here, and again, dump a lot of this stuff back into the system. But we have made some good progress. We have 28 cryptocurrency, which is pretty nice considering we spent quite a bit of it in the last stream. But I think, chat, what we're going to do next time is come back, and I think at this point in time, there are two main things that we need to sort out. We need to figure out power. If we can get improved power, that's going to increase the speed at which our quarry works. Over here, it's still going fairly slow because this invar generator is not particularly great. But especially now we've unlocked Mekanism, we have unlocked even more ways to generate power going forward, which is going to be very useful for us. So we'll look at getting more power, I think. Once we have more power, that's going to allow us to generate more resources. That leads us to our next problem, which is probably lava. We could do with trying to get an unlimited supply of lava to feed our Foundry here, because right now all of this zinc is just backed up in the Foundry, and I assume that we're backing up, inside of here as well, because we can't actually smelt any of this stuff, which again is slowing down the quarry. I imagine the quarry is currently backing up on power because it can't do any mining because it has nowhere to send all of the resources because we don't have lava. So we do need to get some lava going. We do need to get some power going. And we do also need to get a base going as well. I have seen the comments on YouTube. I also see the comments in the Twitch chat as well. I know right now our base is just a haphazard mess of items in the void. We will start looking, hopefully, very shortly at getting an actual physical base up and running. But that is a problem for future Isaac. For now, I'm going to go ahead and wrap up today's stream there.